The bright studio lights shone down on the set of Lorraine, where cameras buzzed and assistants hurried back and forth to prepare for another live broadcast. Lorraine Kelly, the beloved morning host, adjusted her cue cards and gave her signature warm smile to the staff. She was known for her charm, her unshakable poise, and her ability to make any guest feel at ease. But this morning, something in the air was different. Her producer, Martin, leaned in as the countdown to Live Air began. "Lorraine, brace yourself. Sir Michael Caine is in a mood today. He's, let's just say, less than patient." Lorraine arched an eyebrow. "Michael Caine. He's a legend. He'll be fine." Martin exhaled sharply. "Let's hope so." The music intro rolled, and the show began with its usual cheerful tone. Lorraine welcomed viewers at home, updating them on entertainment headlines before transitioning to the highlight of the morning, a rare live sit-down with Sir Michael Caine. As the veteran actor walked onto the set, the audience applauded enthusiastically. At 92, Michael Caine still carried himself with an air of authority. His sharp suit, his glasses perched low on his nose, and the faint smirk on his lips gave him the presence of a man who had lived through decades of fame and didn't care much for politeness anymore. "Sir Michael," Lorraine greeted warmly. "It's such an honor to have you here this morning." He nodded curtly and lowered himself into the chair. "Let's get on with it then." The audience chuckled nervously. Lorraine smoothed her notes and pressed on. "So, you've had such an incredible career, over 6 decades in film. From The Italian Job to The Dark Knight, your work has inspired generations. How does it feel looking back?" Caine leaned back, his expression sharp. "It feels like everyone wants me to keep looking back instead of asking me what I'm doing now. I'm not a museum piece." Lorraine blinked, momentarily thrown off. "Of course, and we'll definitely get into your new projects. But I think the audience loves hearing your reflections." He cut her off. "Yes, but you're asking the same questions have been asked for 50 years. How does it feel?" "Well, it feels the same as it did yesterday, Lorraine. I act. That's my job." "Next question." The crew behind the cameras exchanged glances. Lorraine tried to keep her composure, her trademark smile flickering slightly. "All right then, let's talk about your new book." "My book isn't new," he interrupted again. "It came out months ago. If you'd read it properly, you'd know that." The audience gasped softly. Lorraine shifted in her chair, gripping her cue cards tighter. "I did read it, Sir Michael. In fact, there was one passage that really touched me, where you spoke about resilience and loss." Caine leaned forward, his voice suddenly stern. "Loss isn't a soundbite, Lorraine. My life isn't here to make your program look deep. I've buried friends, I've fought for roles, I've lived through poverty. That's not morning coffee talk." For the first time in her long career, Lorraine Kelly looked genuinely rattled. She cleared her throat and forced a smile toward the cameras. "Well, we appreciate your honesty. Perhaps we can pivot to something lighter. Your fans love your humor. Could you share one of your favorite memories on set?" Michael Caine's eyes narrowed. "Favorite memories? My dear, life isn't a highlight reel for you to edit. You want funny stories to keep everyone giggling over their toast. But I'm not a clown. I'm an actor." The audience fell silent. Lorraine hesitated, her professionalism clashing with the tension in the air. Martin, the producer, whispered urgently into her earpiece, "Move on. Get control." Lorraine attempted to regain ground. "Sir Michael, I think viewers would be fascinated to hear about how you choose your roles today compared to earlier in your career." But Michael Caine stood up suddenly, removing his microphone. "I don't have to sit here and be handled like a child. If you want entertainment, you can interview one of those reality TV stars. I've given enough of myself for decades. I won't do this charade." The audience gasped louder this time. Lorraine raised her hands in a calming gesture. "Please, Michael, we're live. Let's just finish the conversation." He shook his head. "Conversation? This isn't a conversation. This is you fishing for sound bites. I'm done." The cameras tried to follow him as he stormed off set, leaving Lorraine sitting alone, flustered and struggling to hold the show together. "All right, well, that was Sir Michael Caine," she said awkwardly, forcing a smile that barely masked her shock. "We'll be right back after this break." The studio cut to commercial, and the entire room buzzed with chaos. Backstage, Lorraine dropped her cue cards onto the table, her composure finally cracking. "What on earth just happened?" Martin rubbed his forehead. He went off script, Lorraine refused to play along. Lorraine's assistant piped up timidly. Twitter's already exploding. People are saying it's the most awkward interview they've ever seen. Lorraine sighed, leaning back in her chair. He's a legend, but good heavens, that was brutal. Meanwhile, Michael Caine was already outside the studio, stepping into a waiting car. Paparazzi swarmed him, shouting questions about the clash. He ignored them, muttering under his breath, "I've spent my life telling the truth. If they can't handle it, that's their problem." What no one realized was that this on-air explosion would spark a media storm unlike anything Michael Caine, or Lorraine Kelly, had ever faced. The morning after the disastrous interview, the headlines were everywhere. Michael Caine storms off live TV. Lorraine Kelly left speechless after on-air clash. Hollywood legend or prima donna? Fans divided. Clips of the heated exchange were replayed endlessly on social media. Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube lit up with reactions. Some viewers applauded Caine for speaking his mind, while others accused him of being disrespectful to Lorraine. One viral tweet read, "Greater than, Lorraine Kelly handled that better than anyone else could have. Sir Michael Caine was totally out of line." Another countered, "Greater than, finally, a guest who won't sugarcoat everything. Michael Caine was right, TV interviews are fake." Lorraine, meanwhile, sat quietly in her dressing room, sipping tea as she scrolled through the chaos. She had been in television for decades, but this was new. Rarely had a guest walked out on her, let alone someone of Michael Caine's stature. Her phone buzzed. It was ITV executives demanding an emergency meeting. "Lorraine," one of them said firmly, "we need to know if this is going to damage the show. We've built our reputation on warmth and accessibility. Yesterday looked hostile. It's not a good image." Lorraine straightened her shoulders. "I did everything I could." He was determined to blow up. The execs exchanged looks. "Viewers sympathize with you, but others say you provoked him. We need to manage this carefully." Meanwhile, in his London home, Michael Caine sat in his study surrounded by stacks of books and memorabilia from his career. His longtime friend and publicist, Graham, paced the room. "Michael, you've kicked the hornet's nest," Graham sighed. "You could have just smiled, answered the questions, and walked away. Now you've got headlines calling you bitter." Caine took a long drag from his cigar. "Bitter? No. Honest. They wanted me to act like a puppet. I've spent my life telling stories on my terms, not theirs." "But Lorraine Kelly isn't your enemy," Graham pressed. "She's respected. People love her." Michael waved a hand dismissively. "Respected doesn't mean unquestionable. Someone needed to say what everyone else is too polite to say, that these shows don't care about truth. They just want clips that go viral." Ironically, his fiery stance had gone viral. But now the media frenzy wasn't entirely in his control. That evening, Lorraine addressed the situation on her program. Her voice was calm, though her eyes betrayed a hint of weariness. "Yesterday, as many of you saw, my interview with Sir Michael Caine didn't quite go as planned," she said softly. "I want to make it clear, Sir Michael is a legend, and I have nothing but respect for him. Sometimes conversations take unexpected turns. That's live television." The studio audience applauded. But her statement didn't silence the debate, it only fueled it. Commentators, tabloids, and fans across the world dissected every word, every expression, every pause from the interview. Some said Lorraine was graceful under fire. Others accused her of pandering. And then Michael Caine himself spoke out. In an exclusive column for a major newspaper, he wrote, "Greater than, I walked off that set because I refused to be reduced to a caricature of myself. I am not an anecdote machine. I am not here to decorate morning television. My life, my work, my losses, they are not punchlines for tea-time chatter. If people cannot handle truth, that is their problem, not mine." The article exploded online. Fans flooded the comments. Supporters hailed him as a truth teller, while critics branded him arrogant. Days later, ITV made an unexpected announcement. Lorraine Kelly and Michael Caine would appear together again, for a special follow-up interview, this time pre-recorded, to clear the air. When Lorraine heard the news, she was stunned. "You're joking," he stormed out last time. Martin, her producer, gave a half smile. "Which is exactly why people will watch. And so, under tighter conditions and with the world watching even more closely, Lorraine and Michael sat down once again. The cameras rolled. Lorraine looked at him steadily. "Sir Michael, we've both had time to reflect. Do you regret what happened last week?" Michael Caine leaned forward, his eyes unwavering. "No, I regret nothing. Because for once, people were talking about truth instead of fluff." Lorraine nodded slowly. "And perhaps, I regret nothing either. Because television isn't always about comfort. Sometimes it's about confrontation." The air was tense, but different this time, less combative, more mutual recognition. The clash had shaken both of them, but in a strange way, it had also elevated them. The interview ended with a firm handshake. By the following morning, the narrative had shifted. What started as a heated clash was now seen as one of the most powerful live television moments in recent memory. Michael Caine remained unapologetic, Lorraine Kelly remained graceful, and together, they had created a moment that would be replayed, debated, and remembered for years. And as Michael left the studio for the second time, this time without storming off, he muttered with a wry smile. "At least they'll remember me for something real."